Welcome to the bonus show. Well, at some point it was going to happen. Someone was going to blame Joe Biden for this horrible tractor trailer mass casualty event that happened in Texas. So let's wind it back. First part of the story I told you on Wednesday. Initially 40 something, subsequently with people who died at area hospitals, more than 50, I believe the number is 53 individuals have died after being found in a tractor trailer in Texas, no air conditioning, no water, being trafficked, essentially. And trafficked can, maybe willingly, right? Sometimes people pay to be brought to the United States illegally, treated horribly, tragedy, mass casualty event. That was, I told you about on Wednesday. Thursday, yesterday, I told you that they found 4 people and charged 4 people for their involvement in that event. 2 of them, at least, are facing life in prison, if not the death penalty. It is Texas, after all. And that's where we had gotten. The new news is that Texas Republican Governor Gregg Abbott is blaming Joe Biden for the deaths of the migrants found in the truck. How could that be? Well, his explanation is that Joe Biden's deadly open border policies are what got these people killed. Joe Biden's refusal to enforce the law is what got these people killed. This, of course, makes absolutely no sense. Think about that for a moment. If there was an open border, why would the migrants need to pay someone to put them in a tractor trailer to bring them across the border? If the border was open, they would just come here. You wouldn't need to subject yourselves to these horrible conditions. And as usual, it's the same type of, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If any immigration issue ever, even if it's not an issue or it's the opposite issue as to what you believe it is, if there is anything happening with immigration, it must be the fault of President Joe Biden. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was confronted with this, and she said on Air Force One, this isn't Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden's monitoring it. There is no open border policy. In fact, what Joe Biden is trying to do is to disrupt these smuggling networks. The border is closed. That's why people are willing to make this dangerous journey. Do you think they really believe it? Do you think anyone would say, oh, the border is so open, thanks to Joe Biden, that people got onto a tractor trailer with no air or water and died, and that's also Joe Biden's fault? I hope that these folks on the right aren't dumb enough to fall for that. Experience and the last 5 years tells me that they probably are. But it was only a matter of time before they blamed Biden, and now they're doing it. A very timely story out of North Carolina based on a recent Supreme Court decision. 2 North Carolina workers have been fired for not joining their company's daily Christian prayer, according to the EEOC. That's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, I believe is what EEOC stands for. Why is this relevant to the Supreme Court? Well, remember, the Supreme Court recently decided, we covered this earlier in the week, that when this football coach, this high school football coach, offered to lead a prayer at the 50-yard line after football games, that it was fine because it was not coercive in any way. It was optional, and students could choose to participate or not. Football players could choose to participate or not. And we said, well, this is just the first step because there's a power dynamic there. And even if you're not being forced to do it, there is an implicit coercion. And now we have this story out of Greensboro, North Carolina. 2 employees with a North Carolina company say they were fired when they said, I'm not going to participate in the daily Christian prayer meetings. These are against my religious beliefs, they said, and they say that they were fired. The lawsuit wants a jury trial. It was filed in district court on the behalf of John McGaha, a construction manager at Aurora Pro Services, and Mackenzie Saunders, a customer service representative at the residential services company. The EEOC is filing the lawsuit. And it comes, again, just days after this ruling from the Supreme Court. The attorney representing them has declined to comment for now. The company has declined to comment for now. So all we have is what's in the complaint. In the complaint, it states that daily prayer meetings are part of the business model. There's no reference to it on the webpage, and that attendance is mandatory and a condition of employment, even if you have different religious beliefs or no religious beliefs whatsoever. On occasion, prayers were requested and offered for poor performing employees who were identified by name. Mageha says he's an atheist. He says the prayer meetings used to be 15 minutes long. Then they started to go 45 minutes, even longer. And Saunders says she is an agnostic. She acknowledged the prayer meetings became longer and longer over time. They say both that the longer the meetings were, the more intolerable they were. Makes sense. If you don't believe and you're forced to be in a 5-minute meeting and then a 15-minute prayer meeting and then a 45-minute, it makes sense. It would become more and more unbearable over time. Mageha says he asked the owner to be excused from those parts of the meetings that pertain to religion, but the owner said no, and it's in your best interests to keep participating here. If true, that's absolutely bonkers. Mageha then asked again to be excused. And the complaint says the owner told him, listen, you don't have to believe in God. You don't have to like the meetings, but you have to be there. Mageha says he refused and that he was fired. Similar situation for Saunders. So this, I don't want to speak too soon. This seems to be very much on the beyond what even the Supreme Court is saying is okay. Here, there isn't even the pretense that it's optional. Here, the owner is allegedly saying it's in your interest to be there. You don't have to believe in God, but you got to be there. I can only imagine that no court is going to say that this is constitutionally protected in terms of the employer's actions. But the concern, of course, is if the Supreme Court keeps pushing the line a little bit more as to what is acceptable with regard to establishing prayer in schools, at companies, or whatever the case may be, then the Overton window of what is even plausibly acceptable continues to shift as well. And so I'm not going to prejudge the case. I still believe that this will obviously be on the other side of the line, even despite the decision from the Supreme Court. But when we say, what's the next step if the Supreme Court is going to allow what they decided to allow at the football games earlier this week, these are the types of things that start to go further and further and further into cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs land. But maybe you will find a court that says this is okay. Let's talk about Joe Biden 2024. Now, if you've been watching the show, listening to my commentary for the last year and a half, I have said many times, the White House is using very squirrely language when asked, is Joe Biden running for re-election? What we know is that Joe Biden will be, I believe it's 82 at the time of the 2024 election. We know that Joe Biden has not filed for re-election. And we know that when asked, the White House says Joe Biden intends to run for re-election. Intends to run is very different than is running. Intends to run is very different than has decided to run. Intends to run is very different than will run. And now Kamala Harris, the vice president, is again generating more uncertainty. She was asked, is Biden running? And she said the president intends to run. And if he does, I will be on the ticket with him. We will run together. If Biden runs from a vice president is not very strong language. My belief is Joe Biden is not running for re-election. It's just an opinion. I'm not betting on it. People can disagree. I do not believe that Biden is running. The reason this pulled in Kamala Harris is a few days ago when this came up. She said, Joe Biden is running for re-election. I will be his running mate, full stop. This raised questions because nobody else had been that definitive. And now the fact that it has been clarified to Joe Biden intends to run, and if he does, I will be the running mate, to me is more evidence that Joe Biden has no intention to run. Joe Biden does not plan to run. And the strategy question is going to be, how do Democrats, what's the right word, coordinate? How do Democrats coordinate or structure the sequence of events to probably anoint someone as the would-be nominee? I don't believe Biden's going to run, but I also don't believe that Biden will just say, I'm not running. Democrats have at it with a primary. I think it is much more likely that there will be a conversation with Kamala Harris, that the Biden White House either will say we are supporting Kamala Harris or they will not, and instead will support someone else. But I have a very tough time. Listen, I have a tough time believing Biden's going to run. And I also have a tough time believing Biden is just going to say, I'm opting out and I'm taking no position as to who the nominee should be. If Harris wants it, and I mean, she's not very popular, but if Democrats determine, the Democratic Party determine that that's who they want to see as their candidate, Biden will say, I'm not running, but we are throwing our full support behind the great vice president, and she should be the nominee. Don't even have a primary. Or if Kamala Harris says, I don't want to do it, or I don't think I would win, or whatever, I think they're going to throw their support behind someone else. I don't think they would just leave it totally open. It seems risky at this point in time. If you disagree with me, let me know. On either point, will Biden run? I say no. And will Biden tell us who we should vote for in the primary? I believe the answer is yes. Let me know your thoughts. Have a great 4th of July to those celebrating, and I will be back full strength, full bonus shows.
Oh, the bonus show where you want to make money, but everybody else that makes money to fund themselves is bad.
Yes, of course. And with producer Pat after the holidays. See you then.